Live from Rip City, it's the Urb Thrasher Flower Hour, featuring music, videos, and backstage interviews with the masters of metal, the monsters of rock, and the hellbellies of alt country. Now, throw your horns up and crank it to 11 with your host, Urb Thrasher.
Yeah! Get those horns up, everyone. Urb Thrasher here with Radical Russ.
We're back.
That's right, hanging out here in Rip City, Portland, Oregon, here in Rolla J Studios. We got our friend Richard Phillips from King's Haze.
What's up?
All right, dude, hanging out. Glad to have you hanging out. Wow, what a great interview with Jose Mangan right there in the first hour. As usual, he ends up staying longer than he was projected to. Love hanging out with Jose Russ. He's such an amazing... he's so great. Sirius XM Liquid Metal host, and as you heard, has his hands in all four of those channels, and sometimes even on Saturday mornings, he'll be working Octane. And how does he do it? When you know he's going to a show and staying out till 3 or 4 in the morning on Friday night. But as you heard, man, he does it. It's right there in his heart, man. He freaking breathes rock and metal, and that's what he does. And we appreciate Jose Mangan and everything that he does for metal and the bands and for weed and for freedom, man. He's just a rock star, and you guys support him when you can. All right, Russ, lots going on out there in the world of cannabis. We've got news going on. We've got Alaska.
Yeah.
What's up with Alaska?
Well, thunderfuck in Alaska is now legal. You can thunderfuck.
I mean, you can really go get you some Alaskan thunderfuck.
Absolutely. On Tuesday, according to the text of their question that passed marijuana legalization on the ballot last November, it officially went into effect on Tuesday. So that means now anyone in Alaska 21 and older may possess an ounce of marijuana, may cultivate 6 plants, and may freely give it to one another.
There you go, Richard. That's
Awesome.
not bad right there. You ever been to Alaska?
Never been to Alaska.
No, me either, dude. We got to this might be enough right there. Russ, that might get us up to Alaska.
Hell, I'll go to Alaska. That sounds like a good idea.
All right, what else you got? Shout out to you Alaskans real quick. That's great work up there. We really appreciate it. And if you guys get the 3rd state over Oregon and make us get 4th, for me, I don't give a shit. I'm just proud as hell that you guys did what you did. Shout out Alaska.
That
all right,
is
Russ,
right.
what else you got?
Technically speaking, Alaska is the 3rd state where it has become legal, based on the timeline. And then the 4th jurisdiction to become legal is Washington, D.C., where their legalization went into effect by the Congress not stopping it. Mm-hmm. See, these laws that they pass, they go before the Congress, because D.C.'s kind of a plantation. That's the way it is. Everything has to go through Congress, and they have a 30-day review period. The end of that 30-day review period was midnight Thursday. But there's a wrinkle to this, because there is a representative from Utah and a representative from North Carolina who don't like that Washington, D.C., 70% of the voters, mind you, passed marijuana legalization. So they actually wrote a letter to the mayor, Muriel Bowser, and they threatened her by saying, what you're doing is illegal, and you could go to jail for this, and just being very dickish about it, if you want to use the correct
feels
term.
beyond reefer madness.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And what they are basing this on is Congress passed this part in the spending bill that said D.C. can't spend any money to enact legalization. But then D.C. comes back and says, we're not spending any money to enact legalization. The voters enacted legalization. When they checked that box and they passed that law, that's enacting it. Now, had you added the word implement, now you would have stopped us. But it really depends. If Bill Clinton was there, he'd say, well, it really depends on what the definition of enact is. That's basically what it would come down to, right? So this is what they're fighting over now, is these the Republicans, on this Utah Republican and this North Carolina Republican, they're coming back and saying, but you had to print the bill and walk it to Congress, and that the salary that was paid and the copy paper that was used counts as spending money to enact the bill. And they said, wait a minute. The only way we can transmit a law to Congress wait for it, as if it's been enacted. It's already, you're just admitting what we've been telling you. It's already been enacted. So this was a bunch of, dick waving by the Republicans to be, we're pissed off you legalized weed. And it's really a show. If you're a Republican from Utah, this is a campaign commercial for you. I fought against, weed being legal in the Capitol. Satan. So that's the DC story.
Speaking of legalization, lots going on in Oregon these days. What's the latest in Oregon and the OLCC tour? Okay,
so OLCC, the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, they get the duty of regulating marijuana, but the legislature has the power to set those laws. So based on what the law is that we passed, the Oregon Liquor Control Commission is explaining how they're going to regulate it. Is there going to be this requirement for a license? Do you have to have security fences around your grow? All the little minutia detail kind of stuff. And they've been going around the state, Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon, and now they're here in the northwestern part of Oregon, Portland area, having these listening tours where they explain to the people what the difference is, what we can and can't do as the commission, what we're looking at as far as the topics. And what was nice about it is they put all the topics up on a wall, big poster board size wall, and people, when you came in, they give you 4 red dots, and you could put your red dot next to the topic that was most important to you, so everybody could see what people were interested in. And they also gave you a red piece of paper, a yellow piece of paper, and a green piece of paper. So there's like 500 people in this hotel ballroom, and the Liquor Control Commission's going through their PowerPoint, and they'll ask questions. They'll say, like, do you think medical marijuana dispensaries should be allowed to become recreational pot shops? And then if you thought no, you held up a red card. If you thought yes, you held up a green card. If you weren't sure or you had a mixed opinion, you held up a yellow card. And then they would go around and ask one red card person, one yellow card person, one green card person to say why. And then they go to the next subject and they'd vote, And what's cool about this, you could look around the room and see, everybody agrees with me, or this is really controversial. So, and you get to hear from people. They never pick the same person twice. I got to stand up and make a comment, which was, they had asked, should there be a licensing procedure for bud tenders? They didn't call it bud tenders, but whatever. We know what they're saying. Should there be a licensing procedure for bud tenders? And I raised the green card, yes. And other people were saying red card, no. And I imagine these are probably people that want to run a shop. And they don't want another expense. My argument was, look, we have food handlers licenses, we have bartenders licenses. I want to know that the kid that's picking the buds out is wearing a glove, he's learned proper washing techniques, he knows how to store, he knows visually on site how to see if something's moldy or bad. I mean, yeah, they should be licensed. And I gotta like that. So they do that for about an hour, and then the next hour is open mic, and people can line up and have their say. And I got a chance to speak, and the basic thrust of mine was, you've heard my stump speeches before. It was the, look, we've already figured this out with alcohol speech. Look, we're not like having to reinvent the wheel. We already figured out how to deal with the most dangerous drug. Let's not overthink the weed part. So that got a big applause. But the big news on OLCC is the next day, today, they came out with a recommendation to the legislature that if recreational is going to be merged into, or if recreational is going to run, medicals are going to run alongside recreational, it needs to be subject to the same testing requirements. We can't have recreational, because recreational's new and we've got all these testing requirements. We can't let medical just sit there and be all moldy and pesty and whatever. So yeah, that was their big news today.
Well, it sounds like a lot going on. It almost sounds like it's not really a fight right now. It's that they're really listening and taking the people's thoughts. Maybe. Yeah. Did you feel like they were listening, or? Yeah, they did. In fact, the first question that came up was somebody from the audience asked. There's 5 on the commission, right? And they said, Rob Patridge is the chair of it. How can you as a district attorney and you as a real estate agent and you as an insurance agent not have conflicts of interest in regulating a new market that would directly affect, what you do? Real estate's going to be at a prime because of, farms, and insurance is going to be, there's going to be aspects there. But of course, as a DA, and he admitted that he voted against it. He was against it, but now he has to regulate it.
And they all said, well, there's no conflict of interest, no conflict of interest. And so far, it doesn't look like there has been. They've seemed to be on the up and up about it, wanting to regulate it. So there was a lot of discussions about, should there be barrier zones? Should there be security? One topic that got the growers' ire was, should there be a restriction on out-of-state people coming in and farming, or should it be limited to just Oregon only? And also, should there be limits on how big your farms can be? Like, should there be a canopy limit or anything like that? And that was about half and half. They had some people that were like, yes, there should be limits. We don't want, we want the small Oregon growers to be able to prosper. And then on the other side, you had people like, no, we want competition. We want as big a farm, just because there's Budweiser doesn't mean there's no McMenamins, right? Everybody can thrive at a different level. So yeah, it's really interesting to see and how so many people, because I've worked for Normal for a long time, and they said, well, once it's legal, there'll be no use for you. I'm like, no, are you kidding? That's where the real stuff starts, is all of this stuff. The figuring, all right, now that it's legal, how is it legal?
Yep.
And that's what we're doing right now in Oregon.
That's exactly what's happening here. So a lot of people are busy right now. We're going to these meetings and we're listening up. And Rashard, you're sitting in a legalized state right now, dude. How's that feel, man?
Feels good.
That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
You already seen any
Freedom.
signs? Were you cruising down the road, and have you seen any stores or any storefronts or any kind of?
Not in Portland.
Not in Portland,
not yet.
but up in
But
Seattle.
in Seattle, yeah.
I've already been to a place up
Yeah,
there.
I've had the experience of freedom. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's awesome.
Right on. Rashard's from Alabama. He's with the band King's Haze. He's out visiting for various reasons right now, and we're glad to have him in Roller J Studios here on 420 Radio. We're going to get to a few tunes here in just a second and come back and talk and learn all about King's Haze and some of the rock and scene that's going on down in the North Alabama area. All right, Russ, anything else going on in news? Anything interesting?
Yes. We like to follow the South. You're just talking about Alabama. All right. So in Virginia, they just became the 12th CBD state. The governor just signed the bill. This one's interesting because it allows CBD oil and THCA oil.
Just having those three letters is kind of...
They add the A and it's okay because it's not activated, right? You'd think the A would mean activated, but it doesn't. It's very interesting. But anyway, that's been passed, so now epileptic kids and other folks can get some relief in Virginia, which has always been anti-medical and anti-marijuana for that matter.
Yep.
A big story that's developing that's not getting a lot of play is how the Native American tribes have been declared as equals to the states as far as this thing called the Cole Memo. Cole Memo is where they said, look, Washington, Colorado, and other states you can legalize. All right, well, you got to follow these 8 points. No, it doesn't get to kids. It doesn't leak over the borders. It doesn't go on federal land, and that's why Washington and Colorado have been left alone, as long as they're trying to follow these guidelines. The Native American tribes said, well, hey, what about us? We're sovereign nations, aren't we? And the government went, yeah, you can. And that has flipped the world over as far as and it's not really getting a lot of play, but as far as I can see, it's going to flip the world.
Well, that's great.
In a great way, because almost every state has some Native American lands in it, right? So already the Pinolville Indians in California, Northern California, talking about wanting to grow and distribute medical marijuana. Other tribes are wanting to completely ban it. There's one in central Washington that wants to. But the real big story this week on that Native American front is in Alabama and Florida. There's a tribe, the Porch Creek Indians. That ring a bell? All right. So in Alabama, the Porch Creek Indians either have a casino or are building a casino. I forget the detail, but it exists, and the state of Alabama is suing them to stop it. In Florida, the Porch Creek want to build a casino, but Florida's not wanting them to. The Porch Creek issued an ultimatum to Alabama and to Florida. To Alabama, they said, back off the lawsuit. In Florida, they said, let us proceed, or we're going to grow and sell pot.
Oh, that's amazing.
So the Porch Creek are using pot as a weapon to get casinos.
That is freaking awesome, dude. That is awesome. Definitely going to be looking up and keeping up with that story more and more. You go. Are you calling them Porch Creek Indians? What?
Yeah, Poarch. Porch.
Have you heard?
I've heard the term, but
Yeah,
Nah,
I don't remember
not
that one.
studying
That's
them in
new to me.
school.
Yeah.
But I've heard that term before.
Must be it must be like eastern Alabama, because it's like the land was both Alabama and Florida land. So
Yeah, I was gonna say southeast.
You go, dudes. That's what I say.
yeah.
All right, really good stuff.
And think about, like where I come from in Idaho, there was the Fort Hall Indian Reservation. It was past Twin Falls and before Pocatello in this barren, empty space in southeastern Idaho. And everybody knew that's where you get your fireworks. That's where you get your cigarettes.
That's right.
That's where you get your cheap gas. That's where you go gamble for the casino. And you add weed to that list, and every red state that hates weed knows that people are going to go to those Indian lands and they're going to come out with weed. It's going to be too much for them to patrol, and they're eventually going to go, fuck it, we'll just legalize it and make the money off of it.
Ha.
I think the Native American tribes are going to strong arm, kind of like how now there's casinos everywhere.
That's
Once
right.
the Indian casinos started,
That's exactly right. That was my thought too. So I do see where you're going with that, and I am totally supportive of it. So you guys keep going. All right, sound like all the news for you right there?
I think that was most of the big stuff. There's a bunch of stuff still going down in Ohio. Alaska, of course, got legal. The new attorney general in Colorado says that legalization wasn't worth it, and she gets a big thumbs down from us.
Boo.
Jamaica decriminalized pot officially.
Nice.
They've been working on
Go
it. They decriminalized
Jamaica.
2
That's good
ounces.
stuff right there.
Not only possession, but they can cultivate 5 plants is decriminalized. A medical marijuana bill's made it through the House of Georgia, 157-2. It's one of those CBD type things. And a medical marijuana bill got proposed in Utah. For the first time ever, Utah proposed a medical marijuana bill. That's and Montel Williams in Missouri pitching medical marijuana. And Republicans in Florida who they recognize that election where 58% of the people voted for medical, that they better get in favor of medical. So they're switching their votes real quick.
Well, that's very good news coming out of Florida. So Florida, it sounds like you can have a little momentum right there if you play the right cards. All right, great news going out in the cannabis community. All you freedom fighters out there, keep it up, and we'll see you guys out there at an event near you. All right, let's get to some tunes right now. One of the bands coming out of North Alabama, one of the very best rock bands voted. We'll find out all about that and more. Let's check them out right here. This is one of my favorite tunes going, and he's one of my buddies right here. Here it is, The Call from Kings Hayes. Turn it up, folks.